Okay, so we are going to just so happy to have everybody here. Welcome. So great to see everybody's faces and see and hear some of the things that are happening, that folks are getting to, their kids are getting to maybe participate in sports and some things that hadn't been happening. So we are celebrating with you, believe me. So we just, as a quick review of last month's monthly challenge, we went over attitude breathing last month and our challenge. And because of what we're going to try to cover tonight, we aren't going to debrief it, but I will just ask you to give a thumbs up if you were here in February and you did something with the monthly challenge with the attitude breathing. Did anybody implement pieces of that? Yes, Diane. Wow, awesome.
Awesome.
Wow, fantastic, you guys. I would say that's almost everybody who's here who was on last month. So that's fantastic. We are trying to get that video up, and there's some YouTube issues going on with length of video, and we're working on solving that. So for those of you who didn't get to see it, we hope that you will be able to jump on once it's on Mighty Networks. You should get notified, and then you can jump on and watch it if you like. So we're going to start with our first. We always start out of the gate pretty quickly with a breakout so that folks get to connect with who's here and meet a few people. And so while I am setting up the breakout groups here, because I tried to wait until as many people come on as possible, you might want to take a screenshot or with your phone of these questions. And we're real aware that you will not be able to answer all of these questions during this breakout time. And so what we want to encourage you is just to focus in on one or two for your sharing time. And
so there's a theme here tonight, as you might see, and that is we're going to talk about connection, the importance of connection, and co-regulation in a way that probably we haven't talked about co-regulation in the past. And so anyway, what, who, where makes you safe and feel connected? And so that's why all the questions about connection and safety and so on.
Oh, actually, I just made a goof. I need to put gallery screen there because I'm going to jump off to another computer. Rick is actually going to stay and be part of one of the breakout rooms with you all. And I'll get him jumped into a room. And then I will also be in a room as Team Bowman. And so let's see. Oops. Okay, and so we're going to do the breakout rooms, and I'll pop Rick out into a room, and then I will go join a room as well. I won't be able to be here sending messages out to you, so I'm just going to ask you, there's 3 people to a group. So we're going to give 6 minutes for the breakout. So it'll be roughly 2 minutes per person. And I'll give, excuse me, like half a minute, to just get situated and get settled, and then 6 minutes. And then I'll be back here to bring us all back to the room. So any questions about the instructions? Just choose one of these questions, 1 or 2 questions, to just share with your group and, share where you're from and all that. You could share your role that you're in just so that you know who you're in the group with. And then we're gonna have another breakout later. So you're gonna get to reconnect with each other again later as well. Okay, so hopefully that was a good first share with everybody and got a chance to meet a few people. I'm going to bring up our participant thing here. Well, we're going to jump right in because Rick has such good stuff to share with you tonight, and I know he wishes he had a lot more time, but we're going to go with what we have. I think I'm unmuted out there. I'm going to have to go mute, or you're going to have an echo. So I'm going to let you just. I'm going to let you go ahead and start. You should be able to use the clicker if it's turned on. I have to make sure it's turned on. And yes, you can. I'm going to go turn off this microphone.
Okay, I think what we're going to talk about tonight is something that's probably pretty relevant right now, and that is our connection with other people. And what we're going to talk a little bit about is this idea of co-regulation. And if you've been to Doris and I trainings, you know that we talk a lot about the need for regulation and co-regulation. And we're going to talk about it tonight, maybe in a little bit different way, maybe a little deeper dive into co-regulation than we have before. And I'm finding out that I'm kind of really a science nerd, because I'm just like, I just like to talk about the science, but I'm not going to do that. So just relax, don't leave. And but I do want to touch a little bit on the science of regulation, because I think it's really important to what we're going to be talking about. So the thing is that we are wired for connection. From the beginning of our lives, we depend upon others for connection, social interaction, and regulation, right? And we all kind of know that a little bit. But our autonomic nervous system, that part of our nervous system that literally regulates and is involved in 90% of all of our bodily functions, longs for connection and sends signals out in the world searching for signals of connection in return. And by means of co-regulation, we connect with others and create this shared sense of safety. And so just think about the times we're living in right now in the last year and a half, where, you know, we're looking for this shared sense of connection and safety. Well, isolation, or even the perception of lack of belonging or loneliness, or the perception of social separation, leads to a lack of ability to regulate our autonomic states, our emotional states, our cognitive states, our behavioral states. And it really impacts our physical and emotional well-being. And when we feel alone in the world, we are suffering. And it increases our mental and physical health problems, as well as our intellectual, our cognitive health problems. Every part of our mind and body are impacted by aloneness and lack of connection and safety. And so, can you move that for me, please?
Yeah, I touched the thing.
So we've talked about this in other trainings too, as well, is that our immune systems are compromised when we're in this sense of protection. We're in the sense of fear, anxiety, and so on. So the development of the autonomic nervous system in a child has to do with connection and how much protection there is in that early childhood period, and depends on whether we have regulated or regulating people to support us. And so, let's see if we,
yeah,
okay, good. So we've shown this particular diagram quite a bit, talking about the stress response system, but of course the autonomic nervous system, the stress response system is part of the autonomic nervous system. And we've talked about how the stress response system is formed. And if you have a predictable adult, predictable caregivers, then you develop a pattern stress response system that returns to baseline. If you have unpredictable adults in your life that don't meet your needs as a child, you then have a baseline that remains activated. Well, here we're talking about this idea of connection and attunement. And so in an attuned parent-child relationship, the parents respond to the child's autonomic needs and respond appropriately to meet those needs. And really, we're talking about the same thing here. In other words, there's a co-regulation of autonomic states, a co-regulation of emotional states, and so on. And so there's this shared between the parents and the child, there's this shared emotional experience and shared experience of safety as well. So the ability to self-regulate then is built on ongoing experiences of co-regulation between the child and the parents, right? That's where we learn regulation from our caregivers. And so this need for social interaction and co-regulation remains throughout our entire lifetime. And so we depend on others for co-regulation and try to provide it to others, but oftentimes we find ourselves in co-dysregulated states, don't we, with others, in terms of in those states of anxiety, of fear, of frustration, of anger, when we are in groups with other people, and then they start sharing their fear, their anxiety, and so on. And we then move into these co-dysregulated states as well, and probably do that more often than we do move into these regulated states. So the experience of danger or lack of safety shifts us from connection to protection. And one of the things I should say here is think about your own self when you're thinking about these autonomic states of safety and connection. And then think about the kids that we're working with as well, the children that you're working with, and kind of think about both of those at the same time, if you would. And so the experience of persistent danger shifts our systems away from connection and into a state of protection, right? So we then pattern these states of persistent danger or perceived danger shifts us into a pattern of protection where we're living out of this state of protection. Okay, we're living out of these states of fear and anxiety and hypervigilance. And so loneliness is a good example of this. Loneliness is a subjective experience of social isolation. And I wanted to talk about loneliness because we all know that right now there's probably more lonely people in our society than in the past, for sure, right? And I was looking at 2017 statistics of a study where there were 2,000 adults that were surveyed, and 46% of the adults said they were always or almost always lonely. And that kind of blew me away, because I started thinking about what's it like in 2020 and 2021. What do we've got if it's that high in 17? And in that group too, only 27% said they belonged to a group, not a member of a group, actually belong to a group. So here's some interesting things. Loneliness then can motivate us to reach out to others, right? But at the same time, it can activate patterns of protection. So what happens is our physiology pulls us to connect to others, but also creates a fear of rejection. Have any of you ever experienced that before? You don't have to raise your hand, but let me just say, I have, okay? And for kids that have been through trauma, they want to make connections, but there's that fear of rejection. And so what ends up happening then is that when you're in a state of hypervigilance, or they're in a state of hypervigilance, other people feel their emotional temperature. Now, we've talked some about this too. People feel your emotional temperature, believe me, right? They can sense even if they don't sense it through, we've talked about the formation of electromagnetic fields that go outside your body that people can sense, that are a carrier wave of information, your emotional information, but people can also read your nonverbal behavior really well also. Especially facial expressions and things like that. Yeah, you don't close your eyes though. Don't close your face. Yeah, but so anyway, but the point here is that people can read our emotional temperature, and that makes it even more hard to connect to others. And so when we have social interactions and that create social support and a sense of companionship, or where there's a sense of co-regulation and social connection, all of this then can ease the sense of loneliness. And so isolation then arises oftentimes from a state of protection. We're trying to protect ourselves. Maybe we're wanting to reach out to others for connection, but because we're in such a state of hypervigilance and disconnection, that we now protect ourselves. We put our physiology into a state of protection. And it is this perception of safety that is the turning point in the development of relationships. So we can feel a sense of solitude when we're in a state of safety, when we're in a state of regulation, and versus being in a state of isolation. And so, yeah, thank you. She got it for me there. So the research on loneliness supports what your autonomic nervous system already knows about you. And that is you need social connection for mental and physiological health. It's absolutely critical that we have connection. And with enough experience of co-regulation, you become able to successfully self-regulate. That's how you do it. You need others to help you. You need others who are in a regulated state to help you move into a state of self-regulation. And then this history of co-regulation with others builds resilience. So trauma then, as you see on the screen here, might be described as the chronic disruption of connectedness, because it creates survival responses that prevent the autonomic nervous system from finding safety in connection. So again, if you're in a state of trauma, or you're in a state of fear or anxiety or hypervigilance, you can't have that. That's a survival response, and it makes it almost impossible to connect with others. So without the experience of co-regulation, then the autonomic nervous system's pathway move us to a state of protection. And when we are in the state of protection, we can't develop and strengthen these pathways for co-regulation. So when two people co-regulate and share a sense of safety, then their autonomic nervous systems create the possibility of health, growth, and restoration. So this is why co-regulation, us building a sense of safety and connection with each other, is so important. Because within a co-regulated relationship, your quest for safety is realized, and you can create a story of well-being. And so can the children that we are working with as well. So to summarize, and then our trauma stories and trauma stories for kids are rooted in incoherent automatic states and dysregulation, right? They're living out of their trauma, is what I'm saying. And then stories of well-being are anchored in coherent states of safety and connection. So what I'm really talking about here is, again, is that we have to make changes in our physiology to create a new psychology. Does that make sense? To create we have to make those changes because our autonomic nervous system is really running the show in many of these situations in our life. And then we're only reacting out of those states of either connection or protection. And so the autonomic nervous system literally shapes the way we experience life. And so if we then can experience a sense of safety, then we can experience connection. If we're in this state of always continuous feelings of danger or hypervigilance, then we are in this protective state and can't feel a connection. So when you partner your autonomic nervous system, you can rewrite your stories, and when you change your physiological state, you'll change your story and your strategies. And so I wanted to just talk about 3 things real quick. And some of you may have heard this before, and there's a lot of writers, a lot of researchers are talking about this right now. But oftentimes think about this with regard to the children that we work with. We have a story about those children, don't we? We have a story about those kids that have trauma, that have challenging behavior. And our story creates our state. It creates our emotional state. So if I see a kid that I have a story about this kid, that this kid is really hard and is really difficult to work with and so on and so forth, then I may create an emotional state of anxiety, stress, frustration, anger, whatever. right? Regarding that child. And then what do I do next? My strategies come last. So really what I'm doing is I'm creating my state from my story, and then really developing strategies from this story that I tell myself. And so what I'm really telling, what I really want to encourage us all to do is really think about, how do we change our states to a state of compassion, a state of connection, a state where we know that the children and other people in our life really need us to bring that state, those positive, protective, safety states to them. And out of that state, then you create a new story. If you're experiencing compassion and love and care, that's going to create a new story for you about life in general, all facets of life, and also the kids that you work with. And then out of that state, and then from that story, you can then develop your strategies for not only life, but for working with children with trauma. So state, get that emotional state. We'll talk more about that. How do you create that emotional state? And part of it is with the HeartMath tools and strategies that we've talked about. But there's other ways to do it as well. But these are some of the most simple ways to do it. But we just want to really bring this, the importance of state. If I can bring a state, an emotional state that is one of compassion and care and love and peace and joy and happiness and all of those states to a situation. My story about my life, my story about the pandemic, my story about all of these things that are going on are going to change. I'm going to have a hopeful story, and a story that I can bring to children. And I'm going to have a physiology of regulation, and I can bring that to the children and other adults in my life that really need co-regulation and need my self-regulation. So that's all I got.
That's awesome.
For now.
No, that's awesome. So I think we're going to go out to our breakouts, and then hopefully we'll have some time to chat and like questions and whatever. And for anybody who hasn't been on before, what we do is that at the hour, or we try to make it right at the hour, sometimes we're like 5 minutes over, we break for, if you need to sign off, feel free to sign off. And then Rick and I hang out, and we'll spend extra half hour just chatting with anybody who wants to stay on and chat, who wants to ask questions, or anything like that, who wants to further talk about our topic for the night, anything like that. So we'll go ahead and go to our breakout rooms to make sure that we have time. And I think I might have to make 1 or 2 adjustments, because I knew that there were a couple people. Let me see how these groups are looking here. Okay, I've got one group that's short. So I've got one group that's going to have 2 people, but you 2 are going to chat it up. I know you both, and you're going to love it. So I'm not even, oh, one person just hopped off. Okay, so I'm bumping. Deborah Ann, you're getting bumped. You're getting bumped into another group. Okay.
She's got her.
All right.
She's good with it.
She's good with it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
She's
So
very
we're going to
flexible.
open the rooms. I'll pop Rick into a room again. And you were in this room, weren't
Yeah.
you? Okay. I'll pop Rick
Yeah.
into the same room again. And then I'll come join my group as well. And this time, I think what we'll do is we'll take about 10 minutes, this is more like the amount of time I really like to give, is at least 10 minutes to talk about these. So take a quick picture again, guys, of the questions. Okay, we're going to go gallery here for a minute and just do a couple minutes of debrief. Anybody that would like to share something that really came out in your group that really stood out to you, something that somebody else shared, something that dawned on you that you'd like to share with the group? We had some great sharing in my group.
I'll share that just our group really, the comparison of connection to protection really resonated with us. We thought that that was something that really helped us to focus on both the needs of our students and clients, as well as our own needs and the connection between those.
Yeah,
That's great.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that one too. Somebody else, anybody else who wants to share?
Our group, we kind of got off at the end of it on a discussion about how it impacts us at a personal level with family members, and that it's not just about how we react to our students. How do we react and how do we manage that with our families? And that was a pretty interesting discussion.
Yeah, I bet. No, connection isn't automatic just because you have some genetic blood relation, is it? Absolutely. Anybody else had something that stood out that you'd really like to share?
Diane, I think. Diane, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to thank Paul and Laura in our group for a lot of excellent insights. But one thing that came up for us was that if we're in education, we're teachers, professors are really encouraged to be present and to help the kids, help our students, go the extra mile. And if our administrators keep telling us, you need to do more, you need to work more, that doesn't help us connect. After a certain point, we get into protection, not connection. And when our troubled students come to us, we just want to go like this.
Oh, that is so well put. So well put, Diane. Wow, thank you. Yeah, that is such a dynamic that happens for sure. Anybody else who'd like to share? I'm going to switch us over to our screen share here. So we just have a couple minutes left here. And I think for the first time ever, we're not going to go 5 minutes over. So, so our March monthly challenge is to make a plan for increased connection. So spend time reflecting on the following questions. And again, we'll drop in the chat at the end, I have a handout. So you'll have this in the handout, but you can take a picture of it as well. But spend time reflecting on these questions. Who is a person or people that you connect with? What are things that you want to continue doing for connection? And what are new things that you'd like to explore or begin doing with others for connection? And this is going to be an interesting time where hopefully our worlds are expanding again and we can begin to explore or begin doing things with others for connection. So we will post this also to the Facebook group so that people who weren't able to be here tonight will be able to be part of doing the monthly challenge, and we'll be excited to share this at the start of the April monthly gathering and hear what all of you did with respect to this, what you were maybe able to expand or explore.
Yeah, can I say a couple of
Yeah,
things?
yeah, of course.
Okay, so one is that so how many of you really like having the same group? Back to
Both
back, same group,
breakouts.
the same breakout groups. Yeah, I heard that in my group.
Okay, yeah.
So great. That's great. And the one thing well, first of all, before I forget this, I just want to tell all of you how grateful I am for each and every one of you, and so thankful for our friendships and our connection. So thankful for that. And thank you for the ladies that came from Australia tonight, that zoomed in from Australia. That's really amazing. But we just feel so grateful and appreciative for all of you guys.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wanted to say is I wanted to add one other thing that I just read the other day that really hit me hard, because I've read this several times now, and that is self-compassion is one of the most important things that you can do. Not compassion for others is great, but having self-compassion is one of the healthiest things that you can do for your physiology, for your overall mental and physical health. And so I'm just encouraging you to do that. I struggle with that one myself.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel compassion for others a lot easier than I can feel compassion for myself. but we need to feel compassion for ourselves, don't we? We need to feel that for ourselves. So anyway, sending you a lot of compassion tonight and a lot of gratefulness.
Thank you.
That came out in the group as I shared, is that this really is a place that I feel a safety of connection, because we are here because we share the same heart, we share the same journey, and that this group really is a place where I think we all come in with a certain level of trust and vulnerability and sense of safety, and knowing that we're here for a lot of the same reasons, and that there's a sense of care and heartfelt, compassion for one another. So just a few.
I say one other thing too.
Yes.
There's just like so many brilliant people that I'm
I
looking at
know.
here too.
This community
we
is amazing.
we have to figure out a way where we can let you guys talk and bring, there's just so much wisdom and brilliance and genius in this community, literally. And so we'll have to figure out a way where
Yeah.
those of you who are willing to, would like to
Bring
share,
something to
would bring
share.
something
Yeah.
as well.
No, I love that idea. That might be something to look at doing, like quarterly, just do a 2-hour, 3-hour thing, and allow people to bring in the various things that you all are amazing at that you could share. So just so you know, guys, the Connected Community, normally it would end at the end of February, but because of some glitches we had in getting the word out about that, we extended it to March 5th. So if you know people who just like you're knowing they would benefit from being here tonight, they can still register until March 5th, and then it will close again for this quarter. So it won't open again until end of May. So please notify, unless they attend a training. If they attend a training, then they get a little 48-hour, like they can slide in the door. But in general, it's closed until the end of May. So please share with others that could join us, and have them, encourage them, forward the email to them that you received from us, or send them to our website and they can look at the Connected Community page. The stress and well-being assessment, remember we promised that every 90 days, that's HeartMath's recommendation. So many of you took it when you first started, and that was at the beginning of the previous quarter. And so now it's time to do it again. And so Charlotte will be sending those out to everyone. And then book group. We are still debating over what, but not debating like arguing, but like there are just a lot of great ways that we could go with a book group. And so I saw a note or two up there about a book group. I can't wait to hear more. So we do want to start a book group, but we're making that decision about what to do. And we're going to start this first quarter with just one book group. I know we talked at one point about possibly having two, but I think we're just going to start with one. We're just trying to keep that balance again of time, demand, and commitment from people, and knowing that you all have such demand on your time already. And so, anyway, and then the final thing is that many of you may have received emails about our upcoming trainings. Please remember that you have a 25% member discount. As a member of the community, you use the CC25 discount code. And if you have any problem with that, just email to team up here, team@bowmanconsultgroup.com, and Charlotte will help you. She can actually give you a direct link to, I think, to that registration as well. But just remember, don't pay full price for a training when you get a 25% discount off. So I'm going to take us out of share, and just again, thank you guys so much for being here tonight. We're always so blessed to see who shows up and get to spend time with you all. And we brag constantly about like this stellar quality of people that we have in our community, that we just are so grateful to have you all here. So just thanks for the contributions, for engaging, for being here, and really look forward to seeing you all again throughout April, and just watch for any updates that will come via email. Also, for those of you who are new joining, there have been a few new people who've joined. Please make sure that you go in and join in Mighty Networks. You received an invitation to join Mighty Networks. If you don't remember where it is, or you can't find it in your email, email team at Bowman Consult. Again, Charlotte will help you find it and get there, because we post things there. We post the videos, we post interesting articles, we post updates for things that are coming up, as well as in the Facebook group, because we know some of you aren't all on Facebook. So feel free to sign off. If anybody that needs to sign off right now or wishes to, don't feel bad about doing that. It's 1 hour, and I went 1 hour and 4 minutes. And so it was great to see you all, and we'll hang here if anybody wants to stay and chat, ask questions, or discuss anything from tonight. We're happy to hang with